Dong and Iraqi Dinar getting stronger. Bank rates show hope. Iraqi Dinar News Today 2025 RV News. With the intro for your channel RV News. Welcome back to RV News, your trusted source for real-time updates on the Iraqi Dinar, Vietnamese, Dong, and everything related to the global currency revaluation movement. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, tap the notification bell, and stay with us daily for the most critical financial news that could impact your future wealth. Today's report is packed with insights, data, and behind-the-scenes whispers from the banking world. We're diving deep into the recent signals suggesting that both the Vietnamese Dong and Iraqi Dinar are quietly gaining strength, and what new bank rate indications mean for currency holders across the globe. Buckle up, this could be one of the most promising updates we've seen in months. The year 2025 has been full of twists and turns when it comes to currency revaluation, speculation, but over the past few weeks, a new tone is setting in across financial institutions. Investors and insiders alike are noticing something different, something hopeful. One of the biggest triggers behind the shift is an uptick in subtle banking activity and rumored adjustments in internal rates for both the IQD and VND. While these changes are not being shouted from the rooftops, they are being noticed by sharp-eyed observers who have followed the patterns for years. Let's talk first about the Vietnamese Dong. Vietnam's economy, despite global inflationary pressure, has been displaying resilience. Exports have surged in Q2 of 2025, especially in tech and agricultural goods, and the country is attracting more foreign direct investment. These are crucial indicators because currency strength is tied directly to economic health. Several major financial outlets have noted that the Dong is trading more favorably against the dollar than it was even 6 months ago. In the past, we've talked a lot about program rates, those tightly controlled numbers that banks use internally, and recently, reports from within the U.S. banking system suggest that some major institutions are showing placeholder rates for the Dong, ranging from 27 cents to 58 cents. While these are not yet public buy-sell rates, their mere appearance in internal banking systems is significant. Why? Because banks don't prepare new exchange windows unless there is a reason. A growing number of viewers are sending in screenshots and verbal confirmations from branches across the country, from Texas to California to Florida, showing that tellers are now more aware of the Dong and Dinar than they were even a few months ago. This increased awareness points to operational readiness. Something is moving behind the curtain. Now turning to the Iraqi Dinar, perhaps the most discussed currency in the revaluation space. Iraq has made several bold moves in 2025. First, the Central Bank of Iraq announced a new initiative to phase out the parallel market, targeting currency smuggling and black market trades that have plagued the country for decades. As of June 2025, they've successfully stabilized their monetary reserves, bolstering the dinar's position against the dollar. The real game changer, though, is the ongoing digital banking reforms. Iraq is rapidly moving toward digitizing its financial infrastructure, improving transparency, and cracking down on corruption. All of these are critical steps that international financial organizations, like the IMF and World Bank, look for before backing any major revaluation. Within Iraq, there have also been renewed calls by parliamentary figures to restore the dinar to its pre-2003 value, a time when it traded at over $3 to the dollar. While that's still a speculative dream for many, even a partial move toward that level would represent life-changing returns for holders. What makes this week so important is that several Middle Eastern financial blogs and insiders are reporting that regional banks are beginning to treat the IQD with a new level of legitimacy. For example, recent leaks from a Gulf-based investment consortium suggest that preparations are being made to accept IQD in cross-border deals. Again, these moves don't happen unless someone in power knows what's coming. Back in the U.S., we're hearing from some of our most trusted contacts in Tier 1 and Tier 2 banks that their screens are showing test rates for the dinar between $1.33 and $3.25. Now, we always caution our viewers, bank screens are not public rates, and test rates do not guarantee imminent exchange. But historically, every time we've seen these test rates pop up across multiple institutions, especially in a short time frame, it has preceded a major shift in the RV narrative. These aren't random glitches. They are controlled inputs. Some sources even claim that banks like Wells Fargo and Bank of America have conducted staff training sessions under NDAs related to currency redemption procedures, including specific references to the dinar and dong. Let's talk briefly about international factors that may be influencing all this. Globally, we're seeing a rise in de-dollarization, a growing trend of countries moving away from US dollar dependence. BRICS nations have been very vocal about launching a new gold-backed currency system. Iraq has recently increased its gold reserves by 15% and signed energy trade deals that bypass the US dollar altogether. Vietnam, meanwhile, has aligned more closely with regional trade partners like China, South Korea, and Japan. These actions hint at a future where both Iraq and Vietnam assert more control over their currencies and trading relationships, putting upward pressure on the value of their national currencies. There's also a macroeconomic factor that can't be ignored. Inflation and rate cuts in the U.S., the Federal Reserve has now pivoted to a softer monetary stance, initiating rate reductions to stimulate growth. This puts the dollar in a weaker position overall, which may allow room for emerging market currencies like the IQD and VND to gain traction. Some currency analysts are predicting that we may see a broader realignment of global Forex rates by Q4 of 2025, especially if the dollar continues to deflate and commodities like oil remain strong. Given Iraq's heavy reliance on oil revenues, this could be a key driver. Let's take a look at some recent real-world evidence from viewers and sources who are actively tracking developments. One viewer in New York walked into a Chase Bank branch this past week and asked about exchanging dong. To their surprise, the branch manager acknowledged that there have been internal memos advising staff to be ready for new exchange procedures, though no official rates have been released. In another case, a client in Arizona reported that Bank of America's foreign exchange desk briefly showed the IQD listed in their internal FX tracker with a value of $1.91 gain, not public-facing but an extremely promising sign. Over 20 independent confirmations of similar occurrences have come in since last Friday. On the digital front, several online Forex trading platforms, especially those with access to interbank feeds, have shown temporary spikes in both the dong and dinar trading bands. While not sustained, these flashes indicate liquidity testing. Experts believe that central banks and major private institutions may be running simulations or prepping for wider access in the retail FX space. This aligns with the increased chatter we're seeing in banking forums and investor groups, where experienced traders are noting the unusual volatility patterns that often precede a rate adjustment. Now, to temper expectations, because it's crucial we stay grounded. The truth is, there's still no official date or public confirmation from central banks regarding an RV or revaluation event. However, when you look at the totality of movements, straight testing, digital readiness, banking, procedures, geopolitical trends, and currency sentiment, it paints a picture of a system that is quietly preparing for a change. The old saying goes, by the time it's announced, it's already happened behind the scenes. This may well be one of those moments. Another factor that cannot be overlooked is the activity at redemption centers. Multiple insiders, former bank employees, others tied to security contractors are reporting that redemption centers across the country are now fully staffed, equipped, and conducting internal drills. Some even claim that specific protocols have been issued for high net worth clients holding large quantities of IQD and VND, while these centers are still under tight operational secrecy. The uptick in staffing and readiness suggests they are not in a wait-and-see mode. They are preparing for something tangible and soon. Let's not forget the role of the U.S. Treasury in all of this. Earlier this year, a whistleblower document leaked showing that the Treasury had commissioned a quiet audit of outstanding exotic currency holdings among U.S. citizens, specifically referencing the dinar and dong. This document has not been authenticated by mainstream sources, but its content is consistent with actions a government might take to assess exposure and risk ahead of a major currency event. If this audit is real, it means authorities are well aware of how widespread the holdings are, and they're positioning themselves accordingly. So where does that leave us as investors, holders, and followers of this global event? Hopeful but cautious. The signs are mounting. The bank activity is rising. The currencies are holding or improving in strength. And the world is clearly in a state of economic flux, where radical financial changes are not just possible, but probable. For those holding dinar or dong, now is the time to review your plans. Make sure your contact information with your bank.